Okay, so in this video what I'm going to be doing is giving a demonstration of burning a Blu-ray disc with a Blu-ray drive. And so this is the beginning part. So I've put the Blu-ray disc into the tray, and the disc is like a verbatim one. I'll try and remember to put a picture of one of the discs I've used up. And so I'm just going to go straight into the procedures. So the way I've done it is that I've got the disc in the drive, and so I'm going to just pull the disc in using this command. Right, so now I'm just going to wait for it to spin up. Okay, so that's detected that, you can see. So now that it's ready, I'm going to burn. So as you can see, this is from the previous burn that I did. So now I'm going to be doing the next image. So 44 was the one I did before, so that's already gone. So now this is the last one, which is 45. Okay, so now it's starting the right. And there's a reason why I wanted to show this image, because I was just going to give a brief history of how I managed to get to here. And that is that at first I had this Blu-ray drive in my main PC. And so the first thing I did to check whether it was going to work is I used some rewritable Blu-rays. And so the data I was going to back up, I tried doing burns into the rewritable discs. And what I found was that the times that I tried, it would burn for a certain amount, seeming like it was working. And then the burn would like die at a certain stage. Sometimes it would be halfway, a quarter of the way. And so I'm trying to think of, what's causing this problem, why it just didn't seem successful, because I couldn't believe that. Was it really the case that Blu-rays are just that hard to burn? But obviously the technology is there, and they're selling the discs, so the discs, they must be able to work. So what I had to look in the PC, and what I kind of realized is that you have a situation where you've got like the graphics card, which uses a lot of current, and then there's a CPU which uses a whole lot of current as well. And they've got like local voltage regulating modules which are beside them. So if there's a dip in the voltage, those and all those capacitors with the VRMs, they help to counter that. But what I realized is that the way the layout of my PC works is that there's a power supply lead running from to the burner. And all it is just a single lead which is long because it's a big case. And so of course the poor old burner is getting its power from the power supply over a long lead, which of course there's going to be a voltage drop. So now the GPUs and the GPU and CPU, when they need some current, they can draw it from the local capacitors and VRM. Whereas, of course, when the Blu-ray disc needs current, what happens? It draws it along a long lead from a power supply, which is already supplying the GPU and CPU. So, of course, when they both want some current, and then the Blu-ray drive wants to do a burn, wants to do a long continuous burn, then, of course, the Blu-ray disc loses because it doesn't have any VRMs on it. So what I realized is that I'm just this is the next problem. So yeah, this video admittedly is more of just a bit of a long talk rather than actual showing a demonstration of any amazing things. So I realized that, okay, I'm going to need some way of getting the Blu-ray disc a steady power supply. And from inside the PC, it's difficult. So what I realized is, okay, I'm going to need to put in external discs. But then what I found out is that if you go onto eBay, which is a normal place to buy things from, it's actually kind of hard to find Blu-ray cases, DVD drive cases. And when I realized that, the only option I had was actually this particular case here, which was this particular case, which is from, I had to order from China, and it's like 50 something pounds, and it's going to take ages to arrive. And literally, it was the only choice I had. So the only thing I could do was essentially go for it. And, you know, if it didn't work, I'd have wasted the 50 something pounds. But as you can see, because I'm doing this video, it's obvious that this case did the job, because I'm on the last, this is the last disc I'm burning of the series. And even though, you know, I had the odd coaster or two, and some could have been bad discs, and one might actually have just been my mistake, but the vast majority of the Blu-ray discs, they just burned. And so I'm just showing, this is a demonstration of how I went from guaranteed coaster to successful burn. And as you can see on the left, you can see the progress of the burn. And what I've done is I've chosen the 2x, 2 times burn, which is actually the minimum speed that this drive supports. And I was just going to give you some info about how it's connected as well. So if I go, if I do an LS USB, right, so this is the connect. So what I've done is, down here is like this is the SSK, which is what I've essentially done is I've put an NVMe inside a USB case. And it's actually, this is the USB-C connection to the back of this computer. And so this is it. So this is the UAS, and it's connected via USB-C, and it's the ports are the 10 megabits. And the actual case itself it's connected at 10 megabits as well. Then you have the the case, and that's connected here, which is through the USB storage. So this USB 3 port, and then the one other storage here, this is actually a USB, this is what I'm actually using to boot this particular machine. So it doesn't boot from a hard drive. It actually boots from a little USB key. And the reason I've done that is because this is read-only, so that if I lose power, it doesn't matter. Because it's read-only file system, I can just turn the power off and it doesn't make any difference. And so essentially the way this works is that the external has its own power supply connected straight to the mains, so nothing can affect it. So whenever the drive wants some current, it just gets the current, and there's absolutely nothing there's no dips which can happen from CPUs or GPUs. So essentially, whatever the drive wants in terms of current, the power supply gives it to it. And so far, the burns have just been been clean. Well, there's been the odd problem or two, but if you only lose like 3 discs out of 40 something, that's okay. Some people might complain about that, but I'm not, because I'm just glad that I've got to the end. And I'm just going to show something else that I'm doing, which is that it's one thing to burn the discs, but the previous disc that I've burned, I've actually got it inside a sort of deep Blu-ray drive, and so I'm just gonna mount that. Right, so that's mounted. So this is actually on a different machine. So I'm not doing this on the actual machine I burned it on. So the burn machine is separate, and that's the other important thing, is that it's best to do the burn on the machine that's quiet, so that you don't get any kind of interference, with it, so that this good old Pioneer can just just get that data whenever it wants, and the data's there from this SSK. And as you can see, the other thing I like is the way that they're blinking. Notice the blink is continuous, and this is what comes over the USB. And notice that's steady as well. And then the Pioneer, notice the light is solid, which means it's writing the data onto the disk completely solidly, without any interference from the operating system. So, right, so here, so the disk that's burning at the moment is number 45. So the one that I've just loaded in, this is the one I burned previously, which is 44. So I just need to make somewhere to copy it. So what I'm essentially doing is each Blu-ray disc that I burn, each time I burn one of the discs, what I do is I copy the data off them. Right, so I'm going to copy them over, and so what I essentially do is every disc that I burned, I'm not just going to have the disc and say, yeah, it's fine because the burner says it's okay. No, I'm going to actually check it in a different reader. And so I always copy all of the data from the disc that I've burned, just to check that I can actually read all of it. And once I've done that, that's when I actually can successfully say that the burner's finished. So I'm going to be doing that with this one as well. And so I'm going to leave this just on watching it. And what I do is I'll just speed this section up just so you can see that the whole thing really can happen. And then once it's got to the end, then I'll just come back and then we'll just finish up. Right, okay, so as you can see, we're making good progress so far. And the reason why I've decided to jump in here is because now we've reached like about the 24,000 mark. And what actually happens when it gets to about here is when it actually switches layers. And I think I had one disk, maybe another one, which, yeah, I think it's doing it now. So what happens is when it switches layers, it obviously has to do a bit of calibration, and then you get a bit of a pause. And this is one place sometimes where if you have a problem with the drive, it can fail. But I think it's done it. Let me just check, because or maybe not. No, I think it's getting close now. Because normally you hear a sound from the drive when it switches layers. I think it's still on the first layer. And if you have a medium which is dodgy, this is where it can fail sometimes. Because obviously you could have a disk where one layer comes from the factory working fine. But then when you switch over to when the drive tries to switch to the other layer, if the second layer is corrupt, of course, the burn will fail at that point. But I have a feeling, I think it has done the switch. The way I'll know is once it gets to 26,000, normally that's definitely the second layer. So I think that pause was actually the switch. So that's something to watch out for, is if you have a drive which isn't fully compatible with some media that you ended up buying, it could be the case that you could get it that it might consistently fail when it comes to switching layers because there's something wrong with how the disk was manufactured, or the drive itself has a problem with the laser where it can't focus onto the second layer. So that's one thing to watch out for, is that if you get a few coasters and they keep happening at the halfway point and the disks are dual layer, then you might as well give up at that point with those disks or with that that burner drive, because obviously there's some specific incompatibility which will just end up wasting all the disks. But as I've found is that all of these disks I've tried so far, or vast majority anyway, will survive the layer switch. Yeah, I think it's got past. Usually, because the reason why I know that is because the capacity of the disk in the kilobytes, I think it's 47 something. Well, it's 40, yeah, because, yeah, I think, no, it might be 48 actually, something like that. So the switch happens at just on 24, which is half of the disk. And of course, if you don't fill the disk, then the second layer just doesn't get, all of the second layer doesn't get used up. But yeah, I think I could safely say that that was the actual layer switch. So what I'll do is I'll leave it to run and then we'll see what happens at the end. And also, I'm just going to say that this copy is progressing well as well, so that shows that the previous disk that I burned seems like it's good, but I have had one disk fail at the near the end, but that could have been a mistake on my part. But usually, when a disk has a problem, it fails at the beginning, I've noticed. And because I had one disk which it got most of the way, and I think, well, I can't remember, but the copy came up with an error either at the beginning. I think it was at the beginning, and so I thought, because the burner succeeded, I was a bit suspicious as to whether it was a bad burn. So what I did is I pulled the power out of the reader and then left it a bit and then plugged it back in, and then when I mounted the disc and tried to copy again, it worked. So that showed it was just a glitch in the Blu-ray reading drive. So that's another thing you have to watch out for, so you don't end up wasting a disc. Because I think I have thrown away one disc that I shouldn't have, because I didn't do that. But this one looks like it's gonna succeed. So, well, let me just, oh yeah, that's the last file anyway. So if this one finishes, then that's the end. And you notice how it's gone slow because it's at the extremes of the drive. So that's what you find is the copy speed. When you get close to the middle of the drive, I think, it gets slower. Okay, so that's almost finished. And if it gets to, okay, and that's it. So that's a successful copy. So because the files successfully copied from the Blu-ray disc onto just the drive that I'm testing it with, that shows that the burn was successful. So I'm going to be obviously testing these files to do a restore from them, but I'm going to do that later because it is, as you can see, the files have a DAR extension. So that's for I think it's called, it's a disk archiver, and it's called DAR. And so in order to do the restore, I've got to get all the files in one place and then just run the program to extract them. But I'm going to do that at some later date. And I don't know, if someone's interested in this DAR archiver, then I could do a video on it. But, most people just use Windows, so of course they wouldn't care about this. But it's only a few people who use Unix-based systems who would actually care about different kinds of backups. Because I think I've noticed that most Windows people just accept losing their data, which is unfortunate. Okay, so we can see that it's getting close to the end. So now we just get to see what happens. And what I found is that if there's a problem with the burn, the drive seems to be able to tell if there's a problem at any stage, because the burn will just tell. It's not like it will get to the end and then tell you something was wrong. No, it will terminate the burn at whichever point it senses there's a problem. So usually if it gets to the end, yeah, so alright, so now it's closing it. So you can see the data stops going. It stops sending the data. So now it's just finalizing the disk. And that's it. So that's that. So the disk burned and the total amount was 44.7 gigs of data. So it was close. I was just going to show you that it'll probably take a while to get up there, but you can tell how much data is can be held on a disk because it will actually tell you at the beginning. So yes, you notice here it says 46.6 gigs free. So that's obviously GIB. So that's in powers of 2 bytes. So so the total on that disk was 46.6, and I've used of it 44.7. So yeah, that little under a gig is wasted, but I'm not really too concerned about that because at least most of the disk is covered. And I was just going to show you that if I have a look, see each of the ISO files, once the burn finishes, I move it into the done. So if I list what's in done, you can see the ISO files, and here's the important thing is that if you want to fill a Blu-ray disc, I think you can find out what the size is, but your best bet is just to get some rewritable Blu-ray discs and keep trying different ISOs until it fills up. But see the files here, you notice how they're all 49,000 million, so it's 49 gigs. But this is in just bytes, and the maximum size I think of an ISO you can put on, it's actually, I think it's 50, then I think it's 000, and then it could be 00, and then it's some bytes afterwards. So essentially, as long as your ISO says 49 something, it should fit on these discs that I'm using anyway. And I think if your ISO is exactly 50 and then loads of zeros, that should fit as well. But there's a certain amount of bytes over the 50,000 where it will say the ISO is too big. But the good thing is that the burning program will tell you it's too big anyway before doing anything. It's not like it will try to write an oversized file, because as you see at the beginning, it already knows how big the disk is, because the disk actually tells, well, either the drive can find out from the disk how big it is, or the drive itself just has a maximum size for that type of disk. And then if the size here is over that, then the burning program will just refuse and say it's too big. Alright, so I'm going to get this ISO now. Okay, so I've got the ISO. So what I'm going to do now is that this is the one which I did before. So let me just eject that. Or I should say tested before. So if I eject that one. Okay, so that's in the drive, so I've just got to mount that. So now if I go in there, so you can see that these are all 45. So 44 is the one I did before. And as you can see, I don't quite have enough space to copy. So, but what I want to do is I'm going to start the copy anyway and just delete some files as I'm going. Right, so if I go into the empty directory, and so now if I right, so now I'll just copy all the files. Alright, so this is just the same process I'm doing now, where I'm just checking the to see if the data can read off this disk okay. And of course there's no more to burn for now because this is the last disk that I've done. And the other thing is, it's not a good idea to keep the tray open, because I know there's some drives which don't like it when the trays are open, it will shut by itself. So I'll just use this command to close the tray. So now that will just stay there and ready for when I've managed to get some more data to be able to burn some, burn to some Blu-ray discs. Okay, so now I'm just on eBay, so I'm just going to show you what I had to search for. So if you do something like Blu, so you notice how burners don't even show up. It's almost as if so few people burn Blu-ray discs that it won't even show up on the search initially. It's only when I go to Blu-ray burner, finally, you go there. So of course, there's plenty. Yeah, you can find these externals, and yeah, you can get these external USB ones, but not a good idea because of course, if you plug it into the computer or laptop, you get the same problem of the power supply. So for me, the reality is that you really just need a dedicated power supply. But the reason why I'm here is I just want to show you that as I scroll down this list, all you're going to be seeing is drives, these USB externals, and that's it. So notice that's all I'm seeing. So scroll, and I dare you to try and find this particular external. See, it's as if, I'm only presuming that so few people are burning Blu-rays that the manufacturers just don't, they've given up on trying to convince people. So that's the only reason I can think of why. Because you see, these USB, well, maybe you can succeed if you're not filling the whole disk, but I wouldn't bother. I would use a proper burner. Yeah, you got all these proper burners, but what people will do is they'll put them into alright, so OWC are the only ones who seem to notice that there are people out there who will actually want to burn. So there's plenty of drives, as you'd expect. But notice it's only 4. But you see how hard it is to find the case. There's plenty of drives. And yeah, so you buy the drive, you stick it into your PC, try to burn, then you'll use your browser or something, and then suddenly the burn fails and you're thinking, what's going on? I'm even trying to see if I can find the same place I bought it from, because I know there used to be 3 of them. So that's one place with a rip-off price. And notice how it's all the USB. That's what you're seeing. Look how hard it is to try and find an actual proper case. Yeah, see, it's not. I mean, using. Alright, yeah, this is it. So this is where this is about the price I paid. It might have been slightly cheaper, but this is what you should expect to pay, roughly. Especially now with all the fake inflation that they've added. So of course, prices of things are just are higher now. You could get this NAS, I suppose, but the problem is it's just the software that it's using, because you want to have control of the software, so that it's not some dodgy software which will eat half of your drives. Sorry, your disks. Yeah, so that's the end of that. So notice only 2 places are selling it. And Blu-ray. Okay. So people have been searching for external, but what you find is just all the USB ones. So I just want to see how many times this non-USB one shows up. So what, it is USB, but yeah, see their enclosure, £81 for an enclosure, and it's using the same cheap Chinese internal hardware, and they charge, just because it's OWC, you have to pay more, even though they're using the same cheap Chinese components. So 67, yeah, okay, that's similar. But like I say, that's what you'll find, is there will be certain, and this is the only external you'll find. For some reason, this particular manufacturer, it's like they're the only people that have a clue of why Blu-ray burning isn't reliable. So they actually know that, yeah, most people aren't going to bother, because they hear about how unreliable it is, and you can hardly burn anything. So they're going to they know most people are just going to give up. And you hear lots of people complain about, burning to Blu-ray is a waste of time. So then, of course, since people are all staying away from it, the manufacturers themselves aren't bothering. But at least there's just this one manufacturer, and I wouldn't be surprised if the reason why these guys are selling that case is because whoever came up with the idea wants to burn some Blu-rays and realized you needed a case. So he probably convinced a few other people that they needed it, and so he sold a few. So now we can actually manufacture them and sell them to people who he's managed to convince that this is the way to burn. So what I'm essentially saying after all of this is that, I think I just closed the wrong one. Yes, so here it is. So I can't remember. I think this might have been the one I bought it from. I can't remember. No, it's the same guy anyway. See, FE168. Yeah. Yes, it's the same person. So they're selling the same. So I think pretty much this is the only place you can buy it from. I notice it's 2 available, 3 sold, and this one is 2 available, 2 sold. So there's not many available because not many people are buying them. And of course, you'd have to wait a while for it to arrive. But I can say for sure that and also make sure that this is only the case you're paying for. So no, you're not going to get a drive in it for £67. You're just paying that for the case. And like I say, the reason the case is so expensive is because it's not many people are buying it. So if you want to have cheaper, Blu-ray cases, then more people are just going to have to buy them, and then the price will obviously go down. But all this I'm saying is just to say that essentially, if you buy one of these cases, it works, and I've just shown that it does work and it's fully verified, and that this is a way of archiving data in a way where you don't have to worry about any electronics.